What is up, guys? So let's start off today's subject with a little bit of a controversy and the fact that there is one brand in particular that seems to have a demographic of fans that are absolutely rabidly gobbling up everything that brand provides to them, gives them, says to them, and also kind of does to them with some of their crazy antics. And that brand we are talking about is, of course, PlayStation. And whether you like it or not, they seem to be the one vocal minority that seems to tear down everybody they can, every chance they get. And no matter what, they always take everything Sony dishes out to them. And that includes kind of firing their patriarch, Sean Layden. You know that phrase, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you? Well, that was exactly what happened when Sean Layden was ceremoniously kicked out of PlayStation by Sony without so much as an FU tweet on Twitter, which is kind of ironic considering a large majority of the crazy fans for Sony kind of hang out on Twitter. But it's amazing that they did not get up in arms over what happened to Sean Layden. They don't ever get up in arms over some of the other stuff that happens. They are not as vocal as the Xbox community when it comes to, as like some like to try to say, holding the brand accountable. They just kind of take their licks from PlayStation and they bow their head and they're like, yes, please give me more. Since Sean Layden left Sony, we saw Jim Ryan take over, and he has made some absolutely baffling decisions. And we're not talking the decisions with his crazy looking hair every time he gets on stage and some of the comments that he makes in the press. He is making baffling decisions with the brand PlayStation altogether and taking it down a road, a direction, a path that a lot of people are starting to become concerned about. And we can honestly say it is appearing that just maybe the glory days of PlayStation are coming to a close, and we are going to see a completely different brand at this point from what we've seen in the past. Let's at least just start with recent events because we'll work our way back just a little bit. But let's start with the fact that PlayStation went out and decided to raise the price of PlayStation Plus, Essential, all the other tiers that they have. In my opinion, everybody was absolutely concerned that people would get confused about there being two different versions of Xbox. But for whatever reason, having multiple, at least 3 different versions of PlayStation Online is not confusing at all. I'm an absolute avid gamer, and even then, I still don't know exactly what is in the PlayStation tiers without getting out some kind of piece of paper on the internet and reading what's exactly there. But for whatever reason, PlayStation decided that whatever they touch is worth gold because that's how people treat them. And they decided to raise the price of all of those tiers. Now, no, they're not going to be like Xbox raising the price just a mere 16%, going from $15 to $17. No, they went for a full 35%. And in some instances, they raised the price anywhere from $35 to $40, depending on what tier you get. And for whatever reason, Sony felt that what they offer you in these packages is just fine and that they have no reason at all to add any additional value for the additional price hike, which is absolutely insane because at this point, everybody felt that Xbox was just absolutely giving them everything they could, including the kitchen sink and the shirt off their back, with providing games day and date in the Game Pass service. And for whatever reason, PlayStation refuses to do that. And so therefore, Xbox is quickly becoming the must-have service in gaming. And it's kind of curious why exactly PlayStation is doing this, considering they kind of shot themselves in the foot recently with this whole ABK situation with Jim Ryan opening his mouth and trying to cause all these problems. And now they caused it to the point where Ubisoft is going to get the streaming rights for a majority of Activision games, who will then license them out to Microsoft and Sony. But it was also said that also Ubisoft is going to put these games into their own service. So if by some chance Ubisoft Plus gets these games day and date like they're going to come out on Game Pass, well, then Sony's got a big problem, because yet another service is going to be a must-have service, and it's not going to be theirs, and it's almost going to be at their own hands for this whole debacle being created, because they could have just let Microsoft kind of go the way without PlayStation's interference. But no, they had to do what they did, and now they have created yet another major competitor in streaming services. To make the lack of value with the PlayStation subscription services even worse is, for starters, they hide their cloud storage behind the paywall of these services, making it to where you can't even save your games in the cloud unless you pay for an online service. This is something that has been free to Xbox consumers since day one and the inception of cloud saves, and you don't even have to subscribe to anything on Xbox to have access to that. And going back to PlayStation, another devaluing proposition that seems to be taking place is fans and even some gaming journalists are starting to notice, surprisingly, that the value, the quality, the desire of the free games that PlayStation is giving them is going down. They're starting to kind of go the way of games with gold, where they're just giving out very mediocre titles that people are just kind of putting their nose up to. And this is where fans and the media are wondering, is by some chance the fact that Microsoft is no longer giving away free games, PlayStation feels that they once again do not have to compete, and so forth, they are just going to either A, give out mediocre games, or possibly just take away the free games altogether, just like they did with the PlayStation Essential games, where you were able to have access to a library of 100 different games that they took out of the subscription services. But that's kind of interesting, because as we can see, PlayStation is taking things out of these services while continuously raising the price of these services. But PlayStation has also been toying with their fans' emotions even worse, and that is preying on those who wanted to see the PSP brought back into the light of what we got going on in gaming today. We've seen gaming kind of become a lot more handheld with the inception of the Nintendo Switch, the Steam Deck, and of course the Rogue Ally. But let's just stop there, because PlayStation decided to not recreate the PSP as it was. They created some bastardized version known as the PlayStation Portal, where it literally is nothing more than a device for you to be able to pick up your game from your couch and to go continue playing it while you go use the bathroom, because you have to be able to have this device hooked up to your own Wi-Fi in your home along with your PlayStation on, and you will be able to remote play your game, even though you can already do that on a phone and tablet. But for some reason, PlayStation felt that fans needed a screen in between a DualSense controller. But it just doesn't stop there, because PlayStation also decided to push the almighty dollar like they do, and they kind of did not install Bluetooth into this thing. They instead decided to lock the concept of being able to wirelessly listen to this device behind a paywall, and that is by making it to where you need to buy certain proprietary branded devices, certain headphones that have something that is known as PlayStation Link in them. And these headphones range anywhere from $150 to $200. And no, don't think the headset that you got right now is going to work like those fancy white ones that have already been sold and disseminated to the masses. No, these are actually new headphones that are coming to the market that are going to be compatible with this thing. The headphones that you have now are probably more than likely not compatible unless they already have PlayStation Link in them. And if this doesn't describe the path that Jim Ryan has taken the brand, let's also talk about other dance moves that Jim Ryan has made on the fans. We saw that supposedly Spider-Man Miles Morales was a next-gen game, not possible on the PS4. It showed up on the PS4. He told fans that they were going to get next-gen upgrades for free, starting with Horizon Forbidden West, and they tried to charge fans for that. And when everybody got a little bit up in an uproar, they were like, hey, well, this is the only one you're going to get. After that, you got to start paying for these, even though Microsoft provides these updates a majority of the time for free, but PlayStation wants you to pay for them every single time. And also, in the middle of the pandemic, for whatever reason, PlayStation wanted to be the first one to cross the finish line of raising the price on their hardware, making PS5s more expensive in a majority of regions across the world. And as being the market leader in gaming, Other companies have also followed suit, and now we live in the world of $70 games and $560 game consoles. So with the path that Jim Ryan is taking the PlayStation brand in pursuing every dollar they can, especially with raising the price of the PlayStation subscription services, we are now seeing investors in kind of like hike up the stock of Sony over in Tokyo, from what sources are saying. And also what these sources are saying is that Sony is going to stop reporting the numbers of the PlayStation subscription service in earnings calls, because they are obviously trying to hide exactly what is going to happen to those numbers because of these price hikes. They don't want people to know that people are leaving the service, because it's just going to incentivize other people to realize that just maybe Sony is more after their wallet than more concerned about providing a good quality pro-consumer experience, product, whatever you want to call it, to the masses. So everybody, at this point, it is anybody's guess on exactly what the PlayStation brand is going to look like in a few years from now, especially if Jim Ryan continues going the direction he wants to take the PlayStation brand, and that is just concerning himself with turning every consumer in the ecosystem into a walking ATM. But time will only tell. But if you enjoyed today's content, please like, subscribe, comment down below, all that fun stuff that YouTube likes to see. I am also very curious on how you guys feel about this whole situation down in the comment section. Are you just fine with what Sony is providing, or are you just maybe kind of worried that things are going to be a little bit different going forward with the brand? Also, let's just remind everybody that no matter what goes on in the console world, just be sure to play the games that you love on the platform you prefer, because at the end of the day, the console war shenanigans and everything in between in that world is absolute dogma. I am Centurion1307, and thank you for watching. So I'm curious if you made it this far to the end of the video, realizing that I made a mistake in the video, and I'm kind of curious if you caught it. When I talked about the collection of games that PlayStation removed from them subscription services, it was around the PlayStation collection, and I referred to it as 100 games when it was absolutely only 20 games. I am so sorry for by some chance making it sound like Sony provided more value than they did. But again, we're at the end of the video, and I'm really curious how many of you made it that far. But I'm also here admitting I made a mistake, so feel free to leave it down in the comments if you did catch it.